What's up, fellas? What's going on? Dave Chappelle's new stand-up routine, The Closer's out. It's very controversial. He's catching some flack. So we wanted to talk about it because the fallout of it affects us all. Dude, I hate this guy. I hate him. Okay, so we're actors, we're writers, and
comedians. Chiefly comedians.
Mm-hmm.
We always are trying to make people laugh. And we will do any joke that we think of. If you look at our sketches, we're clearly not afraid to do something that hits topics of gender, race, and identity. Okay? And we're certainly not going to stop.
In our view, it's all about intention. Now, we understand that somebody might take our jokes the wrong way. We get that. We're willing to risk that.
But we can't worry about anyone's feelings because we can't control their feelings.
Regardless, under any circumstance.
I mean, people have mood disorders. People just get offended because they're insecure about themselves, you know. So it's just a million reasons why we can't concern ourselves with how someone feels.
So the reason why this is so important to us is because basically people are attacking
Dave
Chappelle's ability, who's debatably the greatest of all time stand-up comedian and comedian period.
Yup.
They're attacking the greatest of all time and his ability to say and joke about whatever he wants. And that affects all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now it's setting a precedent that there are things that we can't joke about.
Which, in our opinion, is completely wrong.
Completely wrong.
And it limits us as comedians, and it's just wrong.
I don't think that any community should be off limits to joke about. I don't think that anything should be off limits to joke about.
Yeah, because a thing on top of that is if we're not allowed to joke about a certain thing, if we're not allowed to joke about, I don't know, let's just say
9/11?
Republicans.
Yeah.
Republicans. Let's just say if we're not allowed to joke about Republicans, that means we feel like they're weaker than the rest of us. And they can't deal with it.
And not even that. It could mean that they're immune to criticism now. Like, if they're just a more powerful entity. Like a dictatorship where you can't mention the dictator's name in any negative way. I mean, that's not freedom of speech anymore.
And that actually gives them more power than everybody else.
Everyone's saying they're marginalized, but now they have the power to restrict people from speaking their mind. That doesn't sound marginalized anymore, does it? Okay. Guys, let's just talk about what he actually said. And if you haven't watched it, please actually go watch it for yourself and form your own opinion. I'm sick of reading about people who are forming an opinion and going on these protests or whatever, and they actually haven't seen it. And their argument is, well, it's marginalizing my community, insulting my community, so I shouldn't watch it and support it. I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
Well, I think if they don't want to support it, that's up to them. That's up to them, and that's totally a fair point.
But now they're going a step further and trying to
take away his career
and restrict everyone else from enjoying the material.
Yes, yeah. So if you're gonna try and take away somebody's career, you better, in my opinion, you should watch the whole thing.
So let's get into what he actually talked about. Well, he said, "I'm Team Turf." Now, that's just a single quote with no context, but he did say it. He said...
This went along with J.K. Rowling. He said he was with J.K. Rowling. That seems to be the most controversial thing that people are getting on.
Yeah, he did trans jokes, but he also did just LGBTQ plus jokes in general.
Republicans, Jewish people, white people, black people.
I mean, he made fun of the Catholic Church.
Asian people, rape jokes, AIDS. Dude, he hit so many different things.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's catching the most flack. Only the flack from the trans community.
And you know what's
LGBTQ.
You know what's funny? One of the things he said in the video was in the special is the LGBTQ plus community misquotes me all the time, and they constantly try to get me canceled, despite always admitting that they haven't actually seen my material. And what happened right after the thing What happened right after the thing was released? That's exactly what they're all saying. I haven't seen it, but I hate it. You know, just goes to show that you didn't see it. Otherwise, you would you would probably stop being so ironic by saying that.
Well, I'll give it to them that some people could watch it and think that it's still their opinion. I'll give that to them.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I think the problem is, because I don't have a problem with somebody not liking the material, thinking it's not funny, and wanting it to not be, like it's their personal opinion that they wish it wasn't on freaking Netflix.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah.
But the problem that I have is that they want to take away his living, so like cancel him to the point where he cannot work anymore, to the point where he's not able to financially like make any more money. Like when he didn't do anything illegal.
Like they did with Gina Carano over a tweet.
Yeah.
Over a tweet. So
I think that is the main thing. And honestly, what he said honestly doesn't even matter.
It doesn't even matter what he said.
Unless he says like fire in a crowded room, right? And everything that entails. And he makes a call to action to cause physical harm to somebody.
And that's the most important one, because a lot of people are arguing that by doing these jokes that he actually is encouraging real world harm against trans people. And guys, I understand some people can watch it and still have that opinion, but bro, that ain't what the guy said.
It's not at all. You can't.
In fact, he said, I do respect you people. I do see you as people. I love my LGBTQ plus friends. And he talked about a particular trans friend that he personally loved. And he goes on this story. And you can almost see this story as the arc of his character that he's playing during the specials, because it's kind of a caricature of himself. Doing rape jokes that he clearly wasn't raped by a Catholic priest, but in the joke, that's what he establishes that it happened. He clearly hasn't written a children's book, but in his joke, he establishes that happened. So it's sort of this character, and the character goes on an arc along with this story, which is he doesn't see his trans friend as a person, and he remarks during one of his stand-up shows that he told her, I've heard all this stuff, but I just don't get it. I don't get it. And, she replied, you don't have to understand me. You just have to know that I'm having a human experience. And he remarks, oh, okay, I believe you, because it takes one to know one. And so he sort of bookends this special with, going on all these kind of trans jokes, whatever. But then his character has this moment of reflection and an understanding where he now truly empathizes with the community. And that's the thing. People say you can't do trans jokes if you're not trans. But that's suggesting that empathy doesn't exist. Like, I can't see that my dog is in pain when it gets a thistle in its paw, and so I just keep on walking and I never address the problem. But I can see him whimpering. And I can look at his paw and see the thistle, and I can, let me pull that out to help him. Without empathy, I couldn't do that. So to say that he can't do trans jokes because he's not trans is to suggest that he can't be empathetic and understand just by, taking his own human experience and projecting it onto them and, sympathizing.
Well, that's what empathy is, one of the things that separates us from animals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could make the argument that animals have empathy, but not to the level that we have.
Yeah.
Like we can actually talk about it. We can actually converse and express it. Yeah.
We can express it in complicated ways.
Yes.
So I hate that you're not trans. You can't talk about trans people, because that's saying that you can't do jokes about any community unless you're part of that community. But then black people do jokes about white people. So why don't we get all up in arms about that?
Well, and it's the whole margin saying that you can't make jokes about a certain sect of people means that it means ultimately that they're off limits, period. And so any opinion that they have, nobody can check them on it, because comedy is a huge deal in terms of the social structure of things, right?
Yeah.
So if Trump just said anything he ever wanted, which he did anyway, but if we were able to if we just left him unchecked, he could do literally anything he ever wanted.
Yeah.
So we have to have these checks and balances from everybody. And that's why, we posted about the special and we caught a ton of flack for it. Amongst our friends, dude, it was kind of eye-opening
I clearly can understand and empathize with someone feeling marginalized and they don't want people to make jokes about them. Okay, because it hurts. Well, I pose this argument that one, I think if you understand that something's a joke, come on, you have to be grown up enough to not take offense to that. Okay, but then they take it a step further and saying, well, they might be calling real world harm to my people. Okay, well, come on now. We know through data that that's really not the case. And he didn't say, go out there and hate and attack trans people. So you really shouldn't be making that argument. I don't think
he said specifically the opposite.
He said specifically the opposite if you watch the whole thing. So I don't really respect that one. And in terms of just joking, then being hurt, I think humor is the
defense
medicine.
Mechanism. Yeah.
Well, I think humor is the antidote. It's not the poison. I used to think that people were bullying me in high school, but as I get older, I realize that I only saw it that way because I didn't want to be in on the joke. I had insecurities that when people made fun of them, it hurt. But if I had just not been so darn insecure, I could have just seen it as funny. And, now that I've emotionally matured, I can make fun of myself without getting offended and without feeling bullied.
Dude, if people, say your friends at the time told other people, dude, stop joking about them, that would mean that they think that you're weaker than they are.
And I can't take a joke. And now I never get in on any jokes because no one wants to joke around me because I always get offended.
They'll think you're less of a person.
And now that's a social experience that I don't get to have because I'm the guy in the room who's always offended. And they just, we don't want to joke around him anymore.
And it's interesting because they want, the people that are arguing against Dave Chappelle, it seems like they want to further, they're arguing for what they fought against for so long. The segregation of, LGBTQ people, clearly that's happened.
Yeah.
That's happened in the history of America for sure, and history of the world, but we're talking about America here. Clearly that's happened.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think anybody's arguing. I mean, if somebody is,
yeah.
Dude. But anyway, if they were to say that we can't talk about them in a certain way, then that segregate, and if you're not allowed to talk about something if you're not in that group.
Yeah.
If I'm not LGBTQ, I can't talk about, gay people or joke about it at all or have any opinions about it. Or if since I'm white, I can't talk about any issues that are, a black person might have.
Yeah.
That further segregates everybody.
Yes.
So it just doesn't.
It further segregates, and it's a segregation of thought even.
If you have a problem, dude, everybody, like the great Bill Burr says, everyone's eating a shit sandwich.
Yeah.
And your shit sandwich might be bigger than mine. But don't get me wrong, we're all eating a shit sandwich. That is a direct quote, Mom. Okay, I don't cuss. But I think the point rings true, and ultimately I think there might be a certain sect of people that really cares about the color of other people's skin. But if you get somewhere else, people are not going to be like that. People really don't respect publicly racism. Like if somebody's racist, none of us are going to respect that. At least 90, let's be generous. 95% of people will not respect that opinion.
Yeah. It's just, people just don't support that anymore.
So you go to a place that you can thrive, and you can't worry about that. Because if you're just thinking about somebody who hates you all the time, you're never going to get anywhere, man.
Yeah.
And that goes for anybody of any race.
The thing I like about that Bill Burr thing is, one of your arguments was, don't make fun of people who are hurting because that's just bullying. Well, I'm hurting too. Do you really think that I'm just excelling in life and everything in my life is perfect and I don't know what it's like to feel pain, to be in a group where people are looking at me funny and making fun of me because of my appearance, because of how I talk, because of how I look, the color of my skin? You really think I haven't experienced that? Because of the way that I dressed? People always make fun of the way that I dress. Dude, like every day, he makes fun of the way that I dress.
All the time, constantly.
I just chose to not take offense.
Because if you can, instead of take offense, you can weaponize your rebuttal against them. Now you're even stronger.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism.
And either way, I don't wish ill on anyone who ever made fun of me for anything. Okay? Yeah. They might have just been trying to make me laugh, and I was just getting hurt by it. I really don't know. I try to cancel them for making jokes about my skin color and my weight and everything. I just think that's so silly. Just not. They might have only had the best intentions, just trying to be funny, and maybe they made a bad joke, and they didn't. They just didn't notice.
Some people, when they commented on our Facebook posts and Instagram posts, that some people, our own friends, they made a couple points. One, they said trans jokes aren't funny, which I think. Well, I know that it's not. That's not a fact. That's an opinion.
Yeah.
So somebody else can think a joke. It's all about the presentation. Yeah. It's like, I just don't. So them making that point doesn't mean anything. It's not about funniness. It's about intention. And the intention can be misconstrued. And if it's not funny, nobody's gonna respect the joke.
If you really think Dave's intention was to hurt trans people's feelings, then you haven't listened to a thing he says.
Yeah.
You haven't listened to it.
And just feelings. The trans jokes aren't funny. It comes from feeling, right?
Yeah.
And
that feelings, you're insecure. You're insecure about being trans in society because you think people think of you differently. Right. And that hurts your feelings.
Right. And feelings, we can't make legislation. We can't make rules based on feelings.
No.
Because it's impossible to quantify it. Who makes the rule about the feeling? Is it just on an individual basis? Yeah. So would you want Trump to make rules based on his feelings? No, you wouldn't. So it's like it has to be based on fact. And so if somebody has hurt feelings, I mean, look at a child. If a child feels angry that they didn't get a popsicle,
yeah,
you can't just give them a popsicle. You're not just going to give them a popsicle. You're the adult. If you're the parent, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to use facts and logic in order to set up the rules for your household. Yeah. So, another thing was hate speech. People want to make it hate speech, which in the greater scheme of things, they want to make a law about hate speech.
Yeah. I hate hate speech. I think it's despicable. But again, it comes back to the question of, to me, hate speech is speaking derogatorily about a community of people on an arbitrary basis, like something that arbitrarily brings them together. Nothing about their actual personalities. And calling harm against them, to me, that is hate speech. Saying I hate you and using the N-word. I mean,
As an example, yeah.
I genuinely don't think that that's hate speech, because a white person could say the N-word and mean it colloquially, meaning, friend, and they're just trying to express it the same way that black people might use it with each other. Even if the world might see that as wrong.
Very unwise to do.
And derogatory. Honestly, a white person could be harmed for saying it. And so that's sort of the reverse in that situation. But hate speech really calls for harm against a community of people. And I do not believe that Dave called for harm against trans people.
No, it's not that. Well, he never called for it. He never called for harm.
No.
He made jokes. He never caused for physical harm. Physical harm is the key.
Yeah.
Because we can't know when he's hurting somebody's feelings.
Yeah. And
in fact, we don't ever want that to be the guideline for a law or action that we take against him. I mean, you cannot want, in terms of corporation, trying to get him fired, stuff like that. I mean, we can. That's up to the corporation first off, right? Yeah. What we can do is not watch a special, which is, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I understand that. Or we can share our opinion online. But I definitely know people are trying to make him not be able to work, period.
Yeah.
Take away his livelihood.
And not just him, anyone else who wants to make fun of the trans community.
Yes. People that are defending him, they want to cancel them too. Joe Rogan. Yeah. Joe Rogan's going to be on tour with Dave Chappelle. He just announced that.
They're trying to get the CEO, Ted Sarandos,
from Netflix,
booted because he was in support of Dave Chappelle's special staying on Netflix.
So it's just, listen, you have the right to do all that. The That's not the argument. We just think you're misguided in that. And that's fine. You can be that's just our opinion. That's fine. But to make somebody to actually take action against somebody in a legal and financial way, I think is wrong here.
Yeah, I think it's just a misguided thing. Yeah.
And you're welcome to disagree with us. Trust us. We want you to disagree with us. If you have disagreements, post them in the bottom, please. We love to hear about it. If you hate us, say it. Dude, we have no problem with that. Just say it.
Because we're not insecure and don't mind having criticism.
Yeah.
And I'll probably think it's funny. I have pinned comments that were clearly meant to insult us on our YouTube videos because I just saw they were funny.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, dude? One of the things we want to talk about real quick is the definition of transphobic. And the point we want to make about it is that it's not clear.
It's not clear, and it's being used against people who aren't transphobic, but it's being accepted that they are. So either the definition is changing, or people aren't using it correctly, or it's just become a derogatory term against someone who expresses a different viewpoint. I mean,
Yeah. And it's, if you were to look up, so trans is, it's very clear, we're very clear on what that means, right? Somebody transitioning from one sex to another. And then phobia means you're scared, are scared of that. So scared of people transitioning to another sex, which I don't think I won't say that, but people, that's not what people are talking about when they use it.
I could see that argument for the bathroom issue where I don't want to be in a bathroom with this type of person. I'm afraid of that. Well, that might be transphobic. That might actually be a fear of trans people.
Even if it's innocent.
Yeah.
Whatever. But people aren't using it that way. They're weaponizing the word in order to take out people that just don't agree with them.
Yeah.
Which isn't fair. Yeah. That's not a fair use of the term.
Yeah, if he's accepting of trans people, but he just doesn't agree with their opinion about gender, I mean, that's different. It might not be the popular opinion, but that doesn't make them transphobic.
Because you're allowed to disagree with people in this country. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You're allowed to that's a whole greatness of our greatness of this country, is that you can disagree with people.
Yeah.
That's what separates us from the rest of the world. That's why people want to move here. If I hate the president, I could talk as much crap as I want about the president. They're not gonna take me to jail or make me disappear.
And my disagreeing doesn't affect your life. I have trans people in my life. My opinion about them being trans, I haven't even expressed what my opinion is, but it certainly doesn't affect their life.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect our relationship.
Because you still respect them.
Because I respect them as people.
No matter what, we respect them.
Yeah.
And, what was I going to say? This system that we have in the U.S. is not perfect. It's a very fragile system. But it is the best out there in the world. In terms of free speech, it's not even close.
Try being heard somewhere else.
In China?
Yeah. Try expressing your identity elsewhere in the world.
In Russia, dude?
Yeah.
Dude. And there's countries that you can get just fined. You can get fined in Canada for saying certain things.
And that's what we mean about canceling Dave. He's one step away from getting fined for saying this.
Yeah.
We can't get to that point.
Literally, the only thing in the U.S. you cannot say is fire in a crowded room. There and everything that comes with that, right? You can't, cause immediate harm in a crowd, blah, 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 that type of thing. And then a call to action on call to a physical action.
Yeah. Like now, I think there's a legal precedent now that if you tell someone to kill themselves and they kill themselves, you're liable for their death.
Mm-hmm. Dave Chappelle's jokes are effective and are funny because he actually respects the people that he's talking about.
Consider this. If he didn't understand, if he didn't empathize...
And he hated them.
Then it would be difficult for him to construct a genuine joke about them and the experience they're having in the world.
And we'd be able to tell.
And you would be able to tell that he's just like, he's just making a dumb joke about one of them using the bathroom.
For instance, here's an example. Who's the guy that does the Trump impressions? For example, Alec Baldwin, who does impressions of Trump.
Yeah.
We all know that he does not like Trump. We all get it. He's been outspoken about it. Now, the impression it's fine, But it'd be funnier if he liked Trump, because it would be he's not just addressing things that, the one side hates about Trump.
Because in one area it's criticism. In the other area, if it comes from love and respect, then it's humor.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like you wouldn't... If I'm laughing at a joke said about me, I mean, dude, I'll have to know, even though might be defensive at first, I'll have to know that that's a funny joke. That's a funny joke. If I'm laughing about an insult to me,
like if someone's
gotta be funny.
If someone's just making fun of his religion and they clearly hate that he's believes in that thing, it's gonna just feel insulting. And in that way, I can understand a trans person feeling insulted if they really didn't believe Dave respected them. But I really think that he does, and he clearly does. If you watch the whole thing, if you disagree with that, okay, but
you're allowed to disagree.
You're allowed to disagree with that.
One of the criticisms we have about Dave Chappelle in this special, I think what's one of the only criticisms, other than just disagreeing with him on certain things, because he made jokes that I just didn't agree with, but that's fine. Anyway, I think he left himself open to being easily combated on the whole gender versus sex thing.
Yeah.
So, people can easily argue against him, even if it could just be like, we don't agree with that,
Yeah.
You can easily combat the whole gender versus, like, he talked about women specifically, and that they're the only a woman can pass a baby through their legs, right? Yeah. Well, somebody could say, regardless of, and this is just the counter, even if somebody disagrees with them, that, well, there might be a man because their gender is different from their sex.
They identify as a man, but they could still produce a child.
So he left himself very open to that criticism.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I feel like he was pretty good about...
And as a comedian...
About it.
A public figure, some people think it's your responsibility to educate yourself. I don't. I mean, I doubt Bill Burr educates himself about everything.
He says that all the time.
He says, dude, I don't even care. I'm just saying this.
He's just like, I don't read.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah. So, and it's not his responsibility.
It's not his responsibility to know the difference between two things that some time ago were interchangeable in public opinion.
His responsibility is just to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Or that's his goal anyway, to make money.
So you harping on him about not knowing the difference instead of just say, hey, we now consider this thing different. I think you're part of the problem for not trying to just educate the public about that and just getting mad when someone doesn't know.
One thing that I feel like should be talked about, and I feel like it really hasn't been addressed that much, is Daphne, the trans woman who Dave Chappelle talked about at the end, who was his friend. She killed herself. And, she didn't kill herself because of Dave Chappelle or any sentiment that he ever, pushed out or jokes that he made.
In fact, she loved his jokes.
Yeah.
And she laughed at all of the trans jokes, all the jokes about everyone.
And she defended him all the way up to the day she committed suicide. But the reasons why she committed suicide that we would assume would be all the hate that she received based on that. And there were people calling for her to kill herself and things like that. Now, we understand that's one case.
No, and that's, so when you make the argument, Dave is inciting harm against trans people, well, the trans community begged for this woman to kill herself. And she did.
It's one case, but it is a case.
And we're not even trying to vilify those people, but you got to put this stuff into perspective. You're trying to cancel someone who hasn't called for any action against the LGBTQ plus community. Meanwhile, the LGBTQ plus community has called action against people like Daphne, and they end up killing themselves.
So there's blood on everybody's hands.
Except for Dave's. Except for Dave.
So, I don't know. Just some thoughts to think about.
It's despicable. It really makes me sad to know that. We love you. We love everyone. Every race, religion, creed, every gender identity.
Yeah, we want everybody to succeed. We want everybody to do whatever they want. So
I think of people as people. All these things that we use to separate us, white, black, everything, race, religion. I always think it's silly because I think I'm as much, black, white, Jewish, trans as anyone else because we're all having a human experience and I completely identify with that. And that's the way I approach everyone is just as another person.
It's just like Morgan Freeman says, in my opinion, I agree with him. He said, in order for us to stop having this segregation of ideas and race and all that stuff, we're going to stop calling people black people. We're going to stop calling them white people. We're just going to call them people.
People, man. That's all it is. Love you all. Post your comments. See you next time.